Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Bigfoot Odyssey's Researchers Report. We got a great show for you tonight. I'm Kerry Arnold. With me, my wife Linda, the other half of Bigfoot Odyssey. And with us as always, producer and co-host of the Researchers Report, the lovely Miss Daniela Iolo. How are you, Daniela?
Good, thank you.
All right. And our guest for this evening, creator of Mr. X Dreams on YouTube, Mr. X Dreams. Welcome, sir.
Hello there, my friends. Good to meet you all.
Great to have you. All right. Before we get started, just to remind everybody in the chat, make sure we keep it clean. We do have the best moderators on YouTube, and we don't want to have to time anybody out. So we do appreciate that. All right. Well, let's just jump right into it. Mr. X Dreams, checked out your channel. And, you know, it seems to me that most channels that have, you know, a modicum of success, which you've had a bit more than that, I would say, there's usually a reason for the name of the channel. Why did you call it Mr. X Dreams? And if you can get into that for us a little bit.
Sure. I guess, I mean, this is not the most exciting story I've got for you tonight, but
it's okay.
When I first started getting into YouTube, like my first, if you look way back, my first like 5 or 6 videos, they're all about my dreams. Basically, myself, my brother, I think several people in my family, we've had these weird, crazy, detailed, like story-driven dreams and nightmares throughout life. And one day I thought, I was thinking, okay, what do I do? What could I do on YouTube? And I started trying to hone my writing skills and take the dreams, my most interesting dreams, and write them out into a narrative to explain exactly how I felt, what happened during those dreams. And 'cause some of them have this weird like air of significance about them, you know, especially ones lately, almost that have caused me to believe basically that we might be living in a multiverse. So I get some really trippy, interesting dreams. And Mr. X is just because I didn't really want my full name out there.
Sure.
I was like, okay, I've been called Mr. X in the past. That's a story for another day. I kind of developed that name, that alias in high school. And so I said, okay, Mr. X. And what am I talking about? Dreams. And Mr. X Dreams came about. My first several videos were about dreams and my nightmares, chronicling them and making them into almost like a short film for your mind. And then that's when people started saying, hey, you know, I got a little bit of success on that, but then I guess I started talking more about paranormal stuff and weird things that have happened to myself and my family members, because we also have a big history of that. And then people started commenting saying, hey, Mr. X, this happened to me too. Or I've seen this. You're talking about shadow people. I've seen shadow people. I've seen black-eyed kids. I've seen this. I've seen that. I've seen Bigfoot. I've seen Dogman. And then all these emails and everything started kind of coming in, and people asking me to help tell their story. And that's how my channel sort of just kind of evolved and meandered into this new path, kind of what it is now.
Well, it's ended up being pretty serendipitous because it's worked out for you, and it's a lot more interesting than you thought it would be, for sure. So
absolutely, yeah, it's fun. I'm kind of haven't had as much time to devote to it as I used to, but I'm a sucker for a good story and a good opportunity to write something out and create. You know, somebody might send me a jumbled bunch of thoughts and ideas describing an experience they had, and then it's my job to sort of turn that into a narrative that is understandable to any listener. And I kind of enjoy the artistic license of doing that. And then even more so, I enjoy narrating it and creating like an atmospheric experience based about that. So you can kind of relive the person's experience.
Well, you definitely make it work. You definitely make it work. I checked out a couple of your videos today. Like I said, for some reason, I had never heard of you. And if anybody hasn't gone and subscribed to Mr. X Dreams, go ahead and do that right now. I'm sure one of our moderators will get that link up there.
They already have.
Oh, they already have. Okay. Well,
very nice.
I'm gonna turn this over to Daniela, because I'll take over if I don't.
Yes, and I'll make him be quiet, Daniela.
You guys weren't playing when you said you have really good moderators. That's pretty good.
Oh, we do, in that we do, yeah. I've actually put the link in the description below as well, so anyone can go there and have a look. I mean, I know you like to do what you just said, the putting the stories together and narrating, but I know for a fact you've got so many personal encounters that I've heard about, from possible dogman sighting to UFO to, and then we'll talk about your dreams, because you've got lots of things going. Your dreams are very interesting, and the things that, connecting with other family members. I remember listening to one where
Yeah.
you both had the same dream, kind of in the same dream. But I'd love to hear this thing that you witnessed, the two kind of cryptid things that you witnessed, chasing the moped.
Okay. First of all, Daniela, I have to thank you for. I told you, I never remember my stories unless somebody asks me about them. And just I was like, man, all I got is this moped thing. But then you just reminded me of like 6 stories that are deeply ingrained in my mind and the experiences that I've had that I have so much stuff going on normally in everyday life that those things fade into the background, you know. But once I get into it, you'll see I can I'll try my best to paint the picture for you guys.
Brilliant.
So this this story, it's kind of I have to be careful how I tell it. I've developed sort of a formula because the way it happened, where I was, what I was doing, is sort of sensitive information. So you'll have to excuse if I don't. This is not the exact circumstances because I can't tell you the exact circumstances, but it's a good approximation of what I saw. You know what I actually saw is exactly what I'm going to tell you, but the circumstances surrounding and how I saw it and why I was there and where I was, that's I can't say that.
Yeah.
So this took place in Afghanistan, and I was watching someone. This was in the middle of the winter. A lot of people don't know that in Afghanistan, the winter, it gets extremely cold. It's the coldest, most bitter winter I've ever experienced, and I even lived in Nebraska before. So that's I mean that was pretty bad, but Afghanistan's worse. And there was this huge snow-swept road out in the middle of nowhere, and I was watching this guy, uh, a guy who lived there, who was from there, and he's on a moped driving down this snow-drifted road. Couldn't even see the road. You can barely see where it ends on either side because you can see kind of like the branches and leaves of these dead bushes poking up out of it on the sides, and the road was sort of smooth, so it was just like a river of snow. And this guy's driving down the road, and all of a sudden, these two large creatures, they were almost the size of him and the moped, like the length of the moped, and bigger than any. They were like bears, like small to medium-sized bears. And these creatures kind of started bounding through the snow towards this guy who's riding down down the street on the moped. And the way they were doing it was almost like if you ever seen a dog or any animal that would be running through snow, how they kind of like bound and hop through it. It's like the snow probably comes up to like their underbelly or
Yeah.
higher, but they sort of bound through it. And they come up to this guy and they start kind of like harassing him, basically. Excuse me. They come up to the guy and they start sort of harassing him. It's almost like they look like they're nipping at his heels and charging at his bike, and almost like they want to knock him off. But they kind of seem like they were playing with him. They could have probably just converged on him and messed him up, but instead they were just kind of, it looked like they were just playing with a toy almost. And the guy was sort of kicking at him and trying his best not to fall off that bike. And I had this feeling that if he fell off that moped, it was a wrap for him. Like he was going to be in bad shape. The things probably were going to tear him up. And I was looking at these things. They had this long, kind of shaggy looking fur. They looked like their bodies were like that of a bear. But when I kind of zoomed in on their heads, and they had almost what looked like long, floppy, like dog ears, which
Okay.
threw me off completely. I was like, all right, are these gigantic dogs or are they bears with floppy ears? I wasn't aware of bears being in that area. I'd never seen any before. And I also had never seen dogs that big either. So in short, I have no idea what these creatures were. And they basically just continually mess with this guy for a couple of miles. Meanwhile, he seems to be terrified the whole time. But I don't know. I always say this. I don't know what makes me actually think this, but he seemed scared and definitely seemed concerned with what was happening. But there was something about his body language that made it seem like maybe this is something he expected to happen. Like, hey, if you go down that road, there are these two giant creatures that are going to mess with you. You know, there's something like that. Daniela, you kind of cut off there. You all right?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I'm just having trouble with my camera, so I can definitely hear you. I'm trying to come back.
Okay.
So you say, did you say they were standing up at some point? Did they stand up on
Yeah.
their hind legs?
So at some point, one of them kind of trails off towards the tree line, and I was like, oh man, thank goodness they're leaving this poor guy alone. I kind of felt bad for the guy after a while. And one of them runs all the way over by the trees and stands straight up. And the way it stood up looked like a bear standing up, you know, how where the front limbs kind of come forward, like the wrists are almost touching each other. That's the way it looked from my standpoint. And once it stood up like that, kind of looking in the direction of where the other one was, the other one eventually trailed off and left the guy alone, and then he continued on his way. And I recorded video of that. Obviously, I wasn't able to take it back with me, but I showed it to a bunch of other people, and none of them had ever seen the creatures that I saw in the video. And that's one of the only, to me, that's the only solid, unknown physical creature that I've definitely seen. You know, and I can't, to this day, I don't know. I've never seen anything to suggest what those things might have actually been. I don't think they were bears. They looked a lot like bears, but I don't know.
Their
I
ears
don't know what
don't
to make
sound
of it.
like bears, do they?
Say that again?
The way you describe their ears doesn't really sound like bears, does it?
Yeah, and it was obvious. Like the bear, I was able to zoom in really well on these creatures' heads, and I could see they kind of had like a brownish, grayish, shaggy hair, but the ears were so pronounced. It was like I felt like the head. I was looking at a dog's head. You know, I love dogs. I've seen thousands of dogs. I know what a dog's head looks like, and that looked like a big dog's head on the body of a bear. So I don't know what that is. I hesitate to say, oh, it's a dog man, but I always err on the side of natural explanation and just something being mundane. Maybe I just don't know what it is, or maybe I just haven't been educated as far as what is in that area. As far as I know, it's not explained.
No, sounds very unusual. I've never heard anything. Have you heard anything like that, Kerry? That description?
Well, you know, these creatures are seen a lot, and though the descriptions vary, I don't think that it's just because people say dog man that it's necessarily half dog, half man. I mean, this could just be, like you said, maybe it's a huge wolf and they stand up. I mean, I've seen pictures of wolves walking on their hind legs, and you say the way the arms were, you know, it's not a ball and socket like shoulders like we have. It's the blade like deer and bears have.
Yeah.
They don't have that. That's why they have trouble running downhill, actually, because they don't have that ball and socket there. So I don't think, like you said, you hesitate to call it dog man, but I don't think that should necessarily insinuate that it's half dog, half man. I mean, you saw something. Okay. This thing standing up, it's huge, head like a dog. Heard it hundreds of times.
Yeah. Yeah. And that the thing that was kind of strange to me is that it wasn't, you know, it was like not like wolf ears. It was like the ears of a what are those, like those hunting dogs, where it's just like big floppy, like it was like just kind of like flopping along the side of the animal's heads, you know, on both sides.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm it's interesting that you say that, because I don't even know why I hold my perception to that using that label, like because it's almost like people want me to say, oh yeah, just say it's a dog man. That's what it is, because, you know, the XYZ. We love dog man stories, so therefore use this as a label, you know, label it dog man so you get more clicks, I guess. I don't know. It's not like the humanoid dog creature that everybody wants to hear about, you know.
Dog man gets clicks, plain and simple. Our buddy Mark from Sawdust Bee says approximately how tall was the creature when it stood up?
How tall? It was probably taller than the guy. It was definitely taller than the guy sitting on his moped, because it was, I mean, I didn't have a lot of things that I could reference in the view that I had, but let me see. I mean, the average height of an Afghan male is probably maybe 5'5" or something like that. And if he's sitting on a moped, it's a little bit shorter than that. The thing was probably over 6 feet tall, I would have to guess. I would have to guess that. Yeah, because it was pretty huge, and they were like over. They were probably about 3/4 of the length of the moped itself, on all fours. So if it stood up, it would be a little bit, you know, it would be pretty tall, I think.
Well, let's see. Andy Gone Fishing says no tail
that I could see, and that's what kind of made me think bear.
Well, that makes a difference. It does, and I mean, location notwithstanding, do you think it could have been a wolf or a natural type of animal? Or do you think this was a cryptid? I mean, what do you think personally?
Unless there's some kind of evidence to some kind of conflicting evidence or something, my burden of proof is pretty high, especially when it comes to what I'm seeing.
Nothing wrong with that.
It's I would have to. I always have assumed that it's just something that I'm not aware of, something that's perfectly normally explainable, and you know, but my imaginative side wants to say it's a cryptid. It's something. It's an unknown thing. It's like saying UFO. Doesn't mean it's aliens.
Sure.
It just means it's unidentified.
Absolutely. I've got my own ideas of what I think, you know, dog man is, or what people, you know, see as a dog man. And it's an opinion born out of just hearing so many different stories and what I've seen and picked up over, you know, 12 years of looking into Sasquatch and Bigfoot. I think they're just inbred Sasquatch is what I think they are. But you say you see, and people say this, man's body, dog's head. And that's hard for anyone to wrap their head around. It's easier for me to wrap my head around Sasquatch, you know, even if I didn't really, if I only just believed that Sasquatch was real. It's still going to be harder for me to wrap my head around. And maybe that's why it is so hard for me. A dog man's body, or Sasquatch type body with a dog head. That's the one I've heard most of the time. But then you hear the ones that are Sasquatch body, digitigrade legs like a dog, the backwards facing or long ankle, I guess you'd call it, with a werewolf head. I mean, how terrifying would that be to see? My
Well, I
God.
think with this one, what's throwing everybody off is the ears. I mean, they're like hound dog ears. You said they're laying
Yeah.
down.
Yeah,
like that.
Not the first time I've heard that,
That's just.
but it
Yeah.
is strange.
yeah. And it was very pronounced. And you know, and back then this is like almost 10 years ago now that this happened. And back then I was aware of, you know, I wasn't aware of cryptids per se at the time, but I was aware of the fact that there's a lot going on in this world that we're not aware of, and that we cannot yet comprehend and understand. So I was like analyzing this thing as much as I possibly could, and that's why my memory of it is so clear. And yeah, I was staring at this thing for several minutes and just wondering, what in the world am I looking at?
And there were two, right?
Yeah, there were two, and they looked almost identical.
Wow. See, and that just kind of it kind of lends or speaks more toward it being. I told you I'd take over. Sorry, Daniela.
I'm used to
Toward
it.
being, you know, a species of some kind. You know, if it hadn't stood up on two legs, would you have thought it was just a dog or an animal or something like that? Would you have questioned whether it was cryptic?
The standing up was the icing on the cake for me. The thing that really got me also, okay, this is first I just assumed they were dogs because the way that they were bounding through the snow looked like, you know, when you see a pit bull or some other dog just running around playing in the snow. But then I realized when they got closer to the guy how big they were. They were bigger than any dog I'd ever seen in that country. And I'd seen tons and tons of dogs there, and none of them were anywhere close to that size. So, and then, you know, just the way, I don't know if it was the way the hind legs looked or they were pretty wide, like stocky, the more I looked at it. And it was like, it started making me think, okay, bear. But when I looked at the head and I saw the ears, I was like, all right, then I give up. You know, I don't know. You
No,
know,
it's definitely strange.
Well, it's
Yeah.
obviously held your attention for you to follow it for that long as well. You know,
Yeah.
so there must be something, and their actions as well of chasing the guy, and you know,
Mhm.
it's very unusual.
Yeah.
Now you're saying about you have an experience, but you can't necessarily put it as a cryptid, and like same with the UFOs, we don't necessarily know that they're aliens. But I know you, when you were quite young, had an unusual UFO experience.
Yes. And this is one of those things where, like, I don't want to say aliens, but I'm like, it's aliens. You know? It's hard not to say when you think about, all right, I'll tell you the story and you tell me what,
Okay.
if you think it was a government aircraft that I saw, a clandestine government operation, or if it was aliens. All right, so let me get some water for a second.
Okay.
So this one, I was about 9 years old, and I was at my grandmother's house. I had got a bunch of cousins, a few siblings at that time. My sister, one of them wasn't born yet. Yeah, it was me and my brother and four of my cousins. And I would go into, it's, our ages are kind of important. They're kind of relevant. So it was my two female cousins are older than me, then my one of my younger male cousins, my younger brother, and then the youngest one, a little kid at the time. He was like 6. We're all playing in front of my grandmother's house, and suddenly I look up in the sky, and there's this football shaped object there. Like, there were these palm trees. This is in South Florida. There were these palm trees that are maybe 10, 12 feet tall, and this object was right above that. So it was like less than 20 feet off the ground, if I'm not mistaken. And this object was black, grayish black, matte texture, and had a ring of red, green, and blue lights kind of just trickling around it, like almost like Christmas lights going around in like a pattern around it. And I remember I was 9 years old. Back then, I wanted to be a scientist, so I was really observant. And I was looking at this thing, and I was like, okay, number one, what is this? Number two, why is it's completely silent? It's not making any noise. I was looking at the leaves in the trees around it. They weren't blowing around or anything. Everything was pretty still, like just normal, like a normal breeze. I was like, this thing is not blowing air or fire or anything. How is it suspended in the sky? It was as if it was just hanging there. There was no propulsion or anything to speak of. And I also noticed that when I was looking at it, the rest of this was like 3 p.m. It was middle of the day and broad daylight, no clouds, no darkness or anything. But when I was looking at it, the rest of the sky seemed completely dark, like a night sky. And I tell my cousins and my brother, and we're like, hey, do you guys see this thing up here? And then we all kind of like huddled together. I don't know if it was instinctively just as a need for, mutual protection or what, but we kind of like bunched up together and we're all staring at it for what seemed like a couple of minutes. And the thing was completely silent. It was like say you took a football and like tilted it where like the lines, the middle, the center line of the football is where the lights were, but then tilt that down almost like it's tilted towards us, like looking at us almost. It felt like we were being observed.
Wow.
And then we're all looking at it, and then all of a sudden, in the blink of an eye, we're all facing the other direction towards the house. It's daylight again. The thing is gone, and there's a situation playing out right in front of us that I remember. I know what happened, but I don't remember seeing it happen. Like somehow I just know. All right, so here's what happened. We flipped around, and now there's my uncle standing out the door with a paper plate in his hand, and on that paper plate is a live turtle. And that turtle has a cracked shell. So what I know, I don't remember actually seeing it, or my memory is like kind of choppy of seeing and understanding what. I don't know how I know this, but my uncle went in the backyard, saw a turtle because there was like a pond in the back, and he was like, "Oh, the kids would be happy to see this. This would be cool for them to see." So he puts the turtle on the plate, and he brings it to the front door. The turtle crawled off the plate and fell and cracked its shell, and that's how the turtle ended up on the plate with a cracked shell. But I don't remember. I just know that, and I don't know how I know it. And so, he said, "Hey, the turtle's going to be fine." We were worried about the turtle now. He said, "The turtle's going to be fine. The salt water in the back is going to help it heal faster, and we're just going to put it back now." So he did that. And afterwards, me and my cousins and my brother were like, "Hey, what the heck was that? Did you guys see that thing? It was like a spaceship." And we're talking about it. And every time we all met up together, I hope you didn't miss all the whole story.
I haven't, no. I can hear it, yeah. I've just had to come back in again.
There's like a buzzing sound or something now.
So, okay.
Yeah,
I'm just going to disappear, but I'm listening to you.
Okay. So we start talking about that, and every time we talk about that, every time we meet up at my grandmother's house, we all talked about it. And this was like the thing that we talked about every time we saw each other. And then one day, the youngest one, the little boy, he's like, "What are you guys talking about?" And we're like, are you kidding me, man? What do you mean? We talk about this all the time. Like every other month when we all meet up together, because we all lived kind of in a tri-city area. And we would be saying, we said, how do you not know this? We were all there. This was like maybe a year later, I guess. And she's, and then the next time, or a couple of visits later, my younger brother, who was the second youngest person there, now he doesn't remember. And he's saying, "Oh, what are you guys talking about? What do you mean we saw a spaceship or whatever?" And then my cousin, who's younger than me, forgets about it. And so progressively from the youngest one all the way up to me, they were just forgetting. So here's one of the first really crazy nightmares that comes into play that I had. I was sleeping one night, had this crazy nightmare that these monsters were like breaking out. Like I was in the back of an SUV. My dad was driving. My whole family's in the car. We're speeding along the streets, trying to survive this giant like demon apocalypse of these giant monsters just bursting out of the earth and coming out and killing everyone. And I'm just in the back of the car holding on for dear life. And my mind, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to exit this dream. This is too much. I'm out of here. I'll see y'all later. So I kind of forced myself to wake up. When I wake up, it's the first time in my life I experienced sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
And I'm like getting all worked up thinking about this. I'm completely paralyzed, and I taste this like metallic flavor in my mouth. I look around, all I can move is my eyes, and there's this little man sitting on my chest, sticking something in my mouth. It's an orange and silver. It almost looked like a orange, almost like a kazoo or something, but with a metal ring, like metal rim around it. And I could taste the metal in my mouth. And it was like this thing was in my mouth, and it almost looked like a gray. It was like I compare it to Gollum from Lord of the Rings, but with like more pale, like pinkish skin and almond shaped eyes, obviously, of course, like dark black eyes. No mouth, no nose that I remember seeing. And this thing is, when I opened my eyes, it like startled, like, holy crap, you're awake. And all I could do was move my eyes. I looked at my clock. I had this digital red clock, and I believe it was 2:36 in the morning. And it went from 2:36. All I could do was look at that clock, and it went from 2:36 to, I believe, 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. I think it was 6 a.m. It turned from one number from 2:36 to 6 a.m. straight. And then once it hit 6 a.m., I was able to move again, and the thing had completely like vanished, popped out of existence.
Wow.
And
now you said South Florida.
Yeah, this was in South Florida.
Gulf Breeze, is it close to Gulf Breeze? Because they've heard of hundreds of reported just strange, crazy UFO sightings around Gulf Breeze, Florida. I mean, a lot of them.
There's a bunch of places down here, and even in like the Caribbean, Haiti, there's places where people believe I've heard a friend of mine who's from Haiti. He said there was a place where there was a craft that would come towards near the island and just dive into the water at some kind of like on schedule almost every so often. I don't know. But here's one more thing about this. That after that happened, and my two female cousins that were older than me, after that event, they still remembered the whole thing with the UFO. But after a while, like if I ask them now, they have no recollection of it whatsoever. I'm the only person, and it makes me seem like a crazy person, but I'm the only person who still remembers what happened that day. And I don't know why that is.
They don't remember any of it, not even an inkling.
When I mention it, one of them kind of, she kind of pretends to know, but I know she doesn't really know. She's just trying to make me happy, I guess, because she could see that I want her to remember. Right. But I've kind of asked her certain things, and she was unable to like provide the details that she would know if she did remember it. And then the other one I hadn't asked in years, but I asked her a couple months ago, and she was like, "What are you talking about?" and I was like, I'll explain it to you next time, but it's not going to make sense then either. So, it's whatever. But yeah. And I asked my uncle, and he remembers the day when he dropped the turtle too. you know, and he remembers us being there and the turtle falling off the plate and it cracked its shell and all that stuff. I just asked him that a few months ago too when I saw him. So that was a real. I mean, that day happened. You know,
Yeah, it
what
wasn't.
happened that
That's
day,
your
you know.
confirmation. It wasn't just a dream or anything like
Correct.
that. It's
Yeah.
the turtle thing happened. Daniela, are you back with us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're a little bit low, but I mean that's probably my speakers.
Yeah. I'm
How's
getting
that? Is
some
that better?
feedback. I'm getting some feedback from her a little
Yeah,
bit.
I'm trying to turn it.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on tonight. I'm sorry. Is that where is that where it started for you then? Because I know you've got you have experienced an ability in your dreams to I think you could probably explain it better than me. But do you think that started from that UFO experience?
You know, it might be because I think you're referring to like I've demonstrated a lot of different abilities in my dreams, like changing the world in which the dream is set, or doing things that wouldn't be humanly possible, you know, obviously in real life. Being able to sort of be lucid enough in the dream to get myself out of terrible situations. Or I had a dream where my mom died, so I changed the entire fabric of reality in the dream at great, you know, expense to my energy. Like it took a lot of power, like thought, to do that, but I wasn't even the same person anymore after that. I wanted that to be different so badly that I like turned into like an Asian person, you know, and I was like in a world where there were dragons and cool stuff, and I was like a magical fighter or something like that. That's what I did to avoid having to deal with my mom dying in the dream. You know, thankfully she's still with us right now, but yeah, that I think that event happened before. That's one of the earliest nightmares that I can remember, now that I think about it.
Well, whatever you did, Daniela, keep it just like that because the buzz is
Yeah,
gone
that's
now, I
perfect.
think.
Okay,
But
that's
all right,
great.
we're a little bit past halfway through. We're going to take you just a second. When I ask everybody to hit that little X over there by your chat, you're going to see this little thing right here. Looks like that. Go hit that for us real quick. And while you're in there, check out the links in the description for the Paranormal Gift Shop. Use promo code Bigfoot Odyssey 10, get 10% discount on that. And the links for my Patriot Supply, and get your 1 week emergency food supply. There's a link there. It is preparewithbigfoot.com. Get 48% discount on everything they've got listed there. The 1 week food supply, 4 week emergency food supply, veggie pack, fruit and veggie pack, and the preparedness kit. I think that's, unless they've added some more stuff, I don't know. But anything you get in there, use our website and you'll get the discount. You don't have to use our website. We use these products. We really believe in them. Everyone should be prepared. You don't need to wait for breaking news because by then it's too late. Always be prepared. Have your 1 week emergency food supply. And the links for Mr. Extremes, check out his channel. Make sure you go there and subscribe. I watched a couple of his videos today. Very well worth it. All you guys know me. I don't subscribe to just anybody. And I subscribed to him today. So it's definitely worth checking out for sure.
Welcome
right.
to the Dreamers.
Yeah, for sure. All right. We're back. So,
Okay.
wow.
So I know as well with your dreams that you've had a dream at the same time as your sister, where you were both in it.
Cousin. It was a cousin of mine.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You were both in different parts of the dream, but you connected. Well, I think she rung you and told you that she dreamt about you, and you said, "Yeah, I was there."
Yeah, this was a trip. All right, so I'll tell you my side of the dream, and then I'll tell you what happened with her. So I had this dream. I didn't think much of it. It was I was standing. It was at night. I was standing in front of this huge office building. To the right of the building, to the right, was a gigantic tree, beautiful tree. There were hundreds and hundreds of people crowding in front of the building. and they were all looking for jobs, and they were all yelling, and it was almost like they were, I guess they were waiting in line for an opportunity to apply for a job or something in the building, but it was in the middle of the night. And I'm just looking at this happening, and I'm like, okay, what do I do? You know, there was nothing really to do. So eventually the dream just ran its course, and I kind of just woke up. I was like, all right, that was a weird, kind of eerie feeling. And then I didn't think anything of it. I just kind of brushed it off, kept going about my day. A couple hours later, I get a call from my cousin, and she tells me, hey, I saw you in a dream last night. And I'm like, okay, tell me about it. She says, oh, there was this big tree and a big building, and there were all these people everywhere. And then you came out from, past the building, came past the tree, and you came up to me, and you were like motioning towards me, telling me to come to where you were, but I couldn't hear you. And I said, okay, that's weird. So what happened next? And she says, well, it's almost like the sky, like from the horizon, turned white. And this whiteness started kind of sweeping over everything until everything was white. And then I was out of the dream. I was gone. So that's what she saw. So I asked her, I said, okay, can you explain, like, what was it like? What was the weather like? What else did you see? She said it was nighttime. There was this big building. I was behind this big building, like an office building. And then to the left of that building was a gigantic tree. And there were, in front of the building, there were hundreds of people, like a huge crowd of people, and they're all fussing and yelling at each other. So when I thought about that, when it rung a bell in my head, it sounds like I was on this side of the building and she was on the opposite side of that same building. And even though I don't remember in my dream, I woke up, my theory is that maybe before I actually woke up and regained consciousness, or maybe there was just a dream avatar of myself or something, sensed, okay, hey, someone else is in this dream with me. So perhaps I came to her and was like saying, hey, this dream is over. I'm waking up already. Just come on, let's get out of here. This dream is done. And the dream, her perspective of everything starting to turn white, like the world just kind of being erased and falling apart. That was my dream, my consciousness unplugging the power supply on that little dream world that it created in my mind, for example. And this all sounds really wacky and far out, but
it doesn't.
That's exactly the way I think.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like they're not your standard dreams. Almost like you go to another place and maybe jumping into another reality.
Yeah, it's like a place that people. I've thought about this many, many times. Dreams might be a place where we kind of all have access to in our subconscious, And I've had other dreams that made me think that as well, like dreams where there was a time where I kept having different dreams, but the same people were in the dreams and they were just switched into different characters. And they began to be like, they began to show some kind of emotional distress of having that happen to them. So there was one dream that I had where there's like 5 or 6 people, and 2 of them were married. And then I go into another dream and those same people are there, but now they're not married. And they both became really depressed because they're like, it's like they weren't supposed to be in the current role, in the role they're in. They're supposed to be lovers. They're supposed to be there to support each other, and they're supposed to be married. Maybe in real life, those are 2 real people that are married, but this dream was making them fill other roles that they didn't feel fulfilling. So the man especially was really depressed. And there was an older lady there in one of the versions of the dream who hated me. She was like looking at me and telling everyone that I was the reason why they were having to do this. Like when I leave, all the lights turn off, and they just have to basically sit around waiting for me to come back so they could fill another role in my dream. It was really, really creepy and eerie, but it just gave me this idea that maybe the people that you see in your dreams are real people sometimes. Maybe not all the time, but sometimes.
Yeah,
maybe they are.
I've experienced that. I mean, generally dreams for some people don't normally mean what you're dreaming about. You know, there's like a hidden meaning sometimes in dreams. They're like a metaphor, if you will. But yours sound very deliberate in a way, and that happens to me when I wake up early in the morning and think about something and fall back to sleep again, and I start dreaming about what I was thinking about as I woke up in that short period. I'm not quite sure how I do that, but I really feel like I can manipulate those dreams in a way, like I'm almost conscious but sleeping at the same time. And I don't know if I am in a different place then, but it feels very real in a way. Than the ones you have where you're in a deep sleep and I actually don't remember a lot of my dreams.
You're completely out of control. Yeah, it's just you're watching a movie basically.
Yeah.
It's got a Truman Show aspect to it.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Like they're waiting on you. Almost, I mean, what people would describe sometimes as a past life coming back. Even Shaggy Scraggy, I love that name so much. Have you ever felt that you have been taken? That's an open question there. I'm assuming he means by aliens and not some beautiful woman.
I've been taken aback a few times.
I hear you.
But it's, I don't know. I have a feeling that whatever was being put in my mouth, as weird as that sounds, that night, I think that was meant to erase my memory of what I'd seen before. And I had assumed that was successful. That process was successful with the other 5 people that were involved. And they were just never any the wiser. They just didn't wake up when I woke up because maybe they didn't have the ability to just say, you know what, this dream is horrifying and I'm out, and wake up in the middle of it and interrupt the process. Why they never came back to do it again, I don't know.
Well, they don't have to now because now you just sound like a crazy person.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly.
All right. JJ asked Mr. X Dreams, do you think your dreams are prophecy?
Shush.
I don't think so. I've never had any dreams that.
Hey.
Well, okay.
Stop it.
There's one. See, I don't think about stuff until somebody asks me about it.
That's why we do questions.
There's one dream that might be prophecy because it hasn't. The thing that's in it. I'm trying to avoid this, obviously, but the thing that is hinted at has not happened yet. And hopefully it never happens because that means I probably died. So I had this dream where I was, quick version is I was sitting out in front of this like old beaten up rundown house, like out in the desert. And a friend of mine from the military shows up in military uniform, looking exactly the way he did when he was 19 years old, like 10, 14 years ago. And he comes up to me and he calls me by name. He's like, "Hey man, what's up? It's good to see you." And he hands me a plastic bag. And he says, "Hey, you ever seen any of these things? What is this? Does any of this stuff mean anything to you?" And in this plastic bag, there's one of my military patches, my name tapes, a couple of other things from like paraphernalia from my military stuff, and they're burned. And then there's a gold plate, a gold nameplate, which is with my name inscribed on it, and it's shattered. So long story short, he says, I'm like, "Hey, I recognize those things," but as I was saying that and looking at it, it occurred to me that those are taken from times that I should have died. Like, for example, the military, there was a time when I was there was a time where I was working with the military, and there were rocket attacks, and this was on September 11th. It was on the anniversary of September 11th in overseas, and there was a rocket attack, and a helicopter that was nearby me got hit and burned up. I watched it burn, and I was in another vehicle, and I was like, man, I'm glad that thing didn't hit me. It hit our people. It just hit what looked like a parked helicopter, and it turned out that there were several people starting, like loading up in that helicopter, and they perished that day.
Wow.
And because it kind of hit me because I'm watching that happen, and this is real life. This really happened. I'm watching it happen, and I'm like, oh man, I was like relieved that it didn't hit my vehicle. I thought it was just because there was a bunch of parked helicopters there. It hit one of them, and it's going up in a blaze, and I felt relieved. But then the next day I found out that several people died. So it was like really a lot of guilt there. And when I saw the military name patches there that were burned, I was like, okay, well, that was from a timeline or something where I would have been the one that got hit. And so there were other things. And so my friend basically says, all right, hey man, come with me. And he takes me into this house, into the shoddy, broken down house that I'm sitting in front of. But when I get in there, it's like a beautiful mansion. It's huge. There's totally a different place. And all these people start coming in saying that they're taking me into custody. They're talking to my friend, and it's basically like an auction. People start coming in from all these different doors saying, hey, he belongs to our sector. We're taking him into custody, where we have plans for him. Da, da, da. And then more people start coming out of different doors in the house. And I noticed some of the people look exactly like other versions, but they're dressed differently. Like there's people coming in a guy comes in with wearing a suit here, and then the same guy comes in another door out from another door, but he's wearing a different suit, and he's arguing for himself to take me, and then everybody's like fussing over who's going to take me into custody. And I started to kind of figure out that, like, somehow whenever I'm supposed to die, I escape. Maybe I escape to another dimension, or I disappear and go somewhere else. I don't know. But that's, for some reason, they want me for their purposes to be used for whatever they want to do. And this lady sits in front of me. I'm sitting down just like not knowing what to do. And a lady sits in front of me and she says something to the effect of, you know what? If I were you, I would really concentrate really hard and to get myself out of here. Like sometimes when I'm feeling stressed out and things are getting crazy, I just close my eyes and I concentrate really hard. She's telling me this almost like she feels bad for me and wants me to escape the fate of being taken by these people. And I do what she says. I close my eyes and I concentrate, and then I woke up. So it's like I went from being there to waking up in this world, almost like I felt almost like I had escaped whatever fate they were about to enact upon me. And so the prophecy part of that, to get to the end of this long-winded story, is that gold nameplate is what I wear on my uniform now. So and it was shattered, so that means in essence, that could have been from a time where I have or will be, I don't know if I'll be shot or somebody's going to try to hit me with a machete or something. I don't know, but whatever it is, that gold nameplate that I wear on my uniform would end up, being cut in half like that.
Right. So you're thinking that could be, prophetic, hoping that it won't be. Newsflash, you're going to die. That's going to happen. We're just hoping it's 90 years from now,
Yeah, and I hope it's not while I'm wearing if I can get away from wearing that uniform, then that will effectively have eliminated the possibility of that being
There you go.
you know, the one. So that's what I've been trying to do.
And well, we're not going to speak it into existence. So,
I had a question.
not that I'm a big proponent of that, but you know, it does
Yeah,
happen.
might as well. I guarantee you it won't happen if we don't try.
Yeah, I mean, maybe get another job where you don't have to wear a badge. Is the other alternative, you know?
Yeah, that's the plan. If only I could get my YouTube channel to blow up.
Yeah.
Well, you seem to be doing pretty well. You haven't. Well, you've been going about 4 years.
Yeah. I've been slowing down lately, but I'm gonna be. I'll pick back up one of these days whenever I
Well,
get the
we
time.
only have a 1 hour long show here, but we definitely want to have you back. I mean, we still do have a few minutes, and that's the reason we have a 1 hour long show, so we can have you back.
Oh
And,
yeah, definitely. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, we leave. Hopefully, people wanting more for the next one. I do want to remind everyone that we do have a giveaway, and we do this every 2 weeks. We give away the 1 week food supply from My Patriot Supply. The way you can enter that, if you haven't entered already, show number 25, last Wednesday's episode, you have one more day to enter. All you have to do is like that video, share that video, and leave a comment, and you will be entered to win your 1 week food supply. Who was it that just won? What was his name?
I don't remember.
Low.
John?
No, John was the first one.
I don't remember the second one.
Brandon
John
Lowe.
Nolan, and then it was
Brandon Lowe.
Brandon Lowe.
Brandon Lowe. Yeah, we just we'll be actually sending that out Monday. But gosh, I'm so sorry. We this Wednesday, 7:00 p.m. Central. Who we got on the show, Danielle?
We've got Tracy Arnold coming on.
Oh, Hiking with Sasquatch Outlaw,
Yeah.
Mr. Tracy Arnold will be on the show with us. That's going to be at 7:00 p.m. Central, Wednesday. Everybody make sure you're here for that. And we want your story. We do narrations, usually on Wednesdays, definitely every other Wednesday we do the narrations, but we want to tell your story. If you have a story you want to tell, email it to us right there in the bottom right corner of the screen. You'll see yourbfstory@gmail.com. You can email us there. If you want to come on the show, you can email us there and tell it yourself. That's fine too. If you want, you can email us at bigfootodyssey@gmail.com. Go to our website, bigfootodyssey.us, fill out our survey. My phone number is right there. A phone number you can reach me at is right there on the front page. Call me anytime. If I don't answer, I'll just call you right back, or you can text me, whatever. Everybody gets called back every single time. So don't worry about, I know a lot of people don't want to call because they think I'm getting inundated with calls. That does not matter. If you want to talk about anything at all, we're here for you. Call us up. So
I just want to add, if I can.
Yes, add.
I've just, I hope you don't mind, but I've added a link at the bottom in the description. It's to a GoFundMe page, and it's for Mr. Extremes. And it's something close to my heart as well, because I know his mum is going through a lot at the moment, and they really need a lot of support. And I want people, if they just go over and have a look and have a read of it, and you know, if you want to help, that would be great.
No, I wish you'd have told me. That's
guys.
absolutely fine. So there is a link in the description for our GoFundMe page. I did hear your mom's not doing well, and you know, thoughts and prayers to her.
I appreciate it. She's fighting.
Well, we hope she comes out everything okay, and we have the best viewers out there. I'll say that until we don't do this show anymore. We love our subscribers. They support us greatly. So if you guys go check out that link to the GoFundMe, if you can throw a couple of bucks in there, whatever you can, if you can, it's definitely greatly appreciated.
Or share. If you can't donate, sharing is very much appreciated as well. And thank you guys for mentioning that.
Yeah, well, you know, I know where you are with that, and it's a devastating thing to go through. And you know, I really hope everything works out. And your mum, she sounds like a fighter anyway. I've read the story, and she sounds like a strong woman, and she's got a strong family around her. So all the best to you and your
Indeed.
mum.
Thank you.
We have been there.
Yeah.
But, all right, that's
Sorry
going to
to
do
hear
it
that.
for this
Okay,
evening.
thanks.
Hey, I had a lot of fun, guys. Thank you
Me
very
too.
much. I
Me
appreciate
too. I
this.
definitely have to do it again.
Yeah, we definitely need
Absolutely.
to have you back on. And I mean, we didn't cover a whole lot. If we didn't get to your questions, guys, we are sorry.
Yeah, I'm pretty long-winded. My bad,
That's
guy.
okay. That's all right. It was still very interesting stuff, and it was I think it was a great show. Anyway, we have a lot of fun with it. So all right, everybody, join us Wednesday, 7:00 p.m. Central. Hiking with Sasquatch Outlaw, everybody's favorite, my cuz, Mr. Tracy Arnold will be here with us. And check out the links in the description. Go check out that GoFundMe for sure. And we appreciate everybody joining us here. Thank you, Mr. Extremes. Thank you as always, Daniela. You do a wonderful job. We love you.
Thank you. Love you too.
My pleasure.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Night,
Good
y'all.
night.